Hey, this is Daryl as a service here with Rich Hale, Windows Observer. Hey, Richard, how you going?
Hey, Daryl, how's it going? A Saturday morning over there for you, right?
It is, yeah, yeah. It's usually the way I'm in the future and telling people what it's like over here. I know you've got back from quite a busy IT Dev Connects conference recently.
Yep. Yeah, our company, KNEC 365, holds an annual IT Developer Connections Conference where we focus on technologies, kind of taking that post-Ignite content
Mm,
and getting some of the same speakers in some cases to come in and talk to folks about in a much smaller, more intimate environment, which is really a big draw. We like that feature of this conference. And it's an opportunity to talk through those technologies. We do birds of a feather session every day. We do panels at the end of every day to talk through the different tracks that we have, so people can ask even more questions. And being a small conference, and Ignite. Don't get me wrong, Ignite is a good conference. Lots of people though. 30,000 people. So sometimes if you're in a session with 400 people, that line to maybe get a quick word in with the speaker is tough. At IT Dev Connections, we really like the fact that little bit more intimacy with the numbers allow people easier access to, say, the
mm,
speakers. And we had some
mm.
great speakers. We had the Microsoft Cloud Ops Advocate team this week doing sessions, as well as just being there for everybody and talking to people, and it was great. We just got a terrific bunch of presenters across our different tracks, and the attendees liked that. I mean, and the hotel, we stayed in the Fairmont. It's a 60-year-old hotel in downtown Dallas, but it didn't look 60 years old. It was really a nice hotel, and the chow there was pretty good.
Oh, great! Look, I know in another capacity, you could be say media, and you do some
I am,
reporting,
yep,
and
I
yep.
do.
So I know that what we're going to talk about with nearby sharing. In a media sense, sometimes you've got a couple of devices with you and you're doing some reporting, you're taking some photos, but you're wanting to use a full size keyboard to write up whatever you're tweeting or
Right,
writing.
right.
And this sort of brings us to that conversation about nearby sharing. Tell us about how you use nearby sharing in your environment or the way you work.
Well, here at the house, for instance, where I work, I'm lucky enough to work remotely from home. So I'm typically here unless I'm on the road like I've been this week. But I always travel with multiple devices. That's just kind of my habit, right? I've got a couple devices for different usage scenarios. And nearby sharing, which it really connects my devices. So Bluetooth is the key connectivity, right? So even if you've got a desktop that doesn't, now most laptops, tablets, phones have Bluetooth, so it's easy to integrate those into this ecosystem. If you've got some older desktop machines or typical, box desktop machines don't have Bluetooth, but you can go on Amazon and for $15 you can get this little adapter that plugs into USB Type A, and
Mm,
boom, you've got Bluetooth capability. And that's the key element. So discovery with nearby sharing, and for those of you that don't know, nearby sharing is an ability to share something really quickly between your devices. So I'm on my phone, reviewing information on a phone screen is okay for the most part, but if you really want to dive into it and get in more into depth with the content, you'd like to look at it on a larger monitor, whether it be a laptop or a tablet or maybe a desktop computer. So nearby sharing, even on Android and iOS, and it's implemented through Edge on those devices right now, it allows you to take that website you're looking at or a picture from your phone or a document and pull up the sharing aspect of Android, which is a very extensive sharing system. And one of the options there is to share it to your other devices. So there's two basic options when it comes to sharing to other devices using nearby sharing in Windows 10. The first is continue later. That's how it's labeled. That
mm,
means it's going to pop up an alert in the Action Center on Windows 10 on any of your devices. Usually the first one you sit down at. But it also works that if I don't clear that, it will show up on other devices until I clear it right from
mm,
the queue. So I've noticed that little, I don't think that's documented, but if I was to clear that on one device, it would be cleared from all. But if I ignore it and leave it there, I can get it on the right device I want to get it on. So I can easily, I click on that and then the link opens up in Edge or my default browser and I can see the content. If it's a photo, nearby sharing, any document, so such as a photo or a Word document, it's a permission-based share. So you have to, unless you've turned it off, the default is permission-based for files. So you can go in and it will ask you, do you want to receive this file from this machine? And then you can accept it and it will save it in your downloads folder. If you turn off that setting, basically those files will be dropped in on your device in the download folder without any kind of intervention. Now,
mm,
You can also set that to be just from you logged in on other devices. So it's very secure in that perspective. I probably would never run it any other way. If the device is on my Microsoft account and it asks to send me a photo, I'm okay with that because it's usually going to be me. And I'm not going to open that up for others to possibly discover my Bluetooth sharing and maybe drop something in on me I don't want. So permission-based if you need it. Bluetooth speeds aren't the greatest in the world. Sometimes there's other faster ways to get something from device to device. And I know we're not talking about your phone, but your phone is one of those things that really help with this too, specifically with pictures. It doesn't do you much for documents and things like that. And then, so we've talked about continue later. That will pop up on the devices as you access them. The other one is to pick a specific device. There's a list. It populates a list of discovered devices that are using the same Microsoft account and using Nearby Sharing. And you can actually send a link or, again, that file to directly to a specific machine. And I use this sometimes when I want it to be on my desktop, for instance, on my big screen. And what happens is that dumps it to that machine, and it opens Edge browser with the website in the browser. So the next time I log on that machine, it opens up, and there it is in the browser. It's not in the Action Center. It's in the browser ready for me to look at. So, but I can only share that to one device. So if I say desktop, that's where it's going to go. If I say laptop, that's where it's going to go. If I do continue later, it hits any of my devices feasibly.
No, so I hear two ways that I could use Nearby Sharing, and one being that I can share the content that I'm browsing to another device for convenience, because it might start on the phone and then I might want to go to something larger, as you say. And then there are files, whether it be photos, documents, or something a little larger, that I might want to just quickly share without having to find a network share or go through the rigmarole of uploading and syncing it to OneDrive and back down again. Yeah, and look, I was thinking about that workflow from a conference perspective, because you and I have been to conferences recently, that we like to take a picture or two, drag it into something and write something there too. I used to try and use OneDrive this way, where I would always have my camera roll sitting there. I'd be tethered to my phone and I would have the photos going through that way. And so I could grab that photo, drop it into the article or the piece that I'm writing, and that would be nice and convenient. But I thought Nearby Sharing would be a good alternative, and I'm glad you talked about how it works, because as I discovered it yesterday, and I'm only a recent user of it, it did feel kind of slow. The discovery piece I hadn't got working beforehand. So now I can see my devices. I can see, oh look, there's my laptop and there's my Surface, and I was able to choose it. And like you said, there's some permissions there. I've given myself permission to send myself files. That's good. And I could accept it. And the other interesting thing I found, Rich, was I'm in the habit of leaving the Action Center into focus mode most of the time.
Me too.
I didn't see any prompt on the machine receiving the file, because I was in that focus mode. I had to go into the Action Center
and open it up
and find it.
Now you could, by an app basis, there are settings for alerts that you could make that happen in focus mode, so you can go into app permissions in the settings and clear that app. So in other words, that sharing aspect, Nearby Sharing, to be able to pop those alerts for you, even when you have everything else in focus mode. Or you just need to be aware, like you became aware, that focus mode is going to hide that prompt. You need to open, if you're expecting it, you go open Action Center and you grab it. You go through. Do you want to step
through that now with me? Let me just share my screen. And we'll go through that. And we'll sort of. We've got that one over there. We've got the tweet up there of us coordinating stuff. And we'll flick this over so we can see what's going on.
So the key to remember about Focus Assist, there's 3 settings. You can turn it off. That means everything that prompts an alert on your machine is going to pop up a toast and then go into and be in the Action Center. There's priority only, and then there's alarms only. So alarms are based on clock type stuff. So alarms for meetings, alarms that you may have set manually through Cortana or something like that. And so what we're going to be looking for is I keep mine set to alarms only, and because I've never gone in and managed my apps to what I want to hear from and what I don't want to hear from, because I'm so actively checking alerts anyway. So my suggestion is that if you're going to do this, and anybody listening is going to do this, is that you choose priority only mode, and then you go in and customize the apps that you give permission to break priority, to be priority alert. So we'll go in and look at that. I was just reminding myself, can I make this screen larger? Oh yeah, I can.
Probably can, yeah.
Yep, just did.
And so it's focused assist, is it? Or into the notifications?
Yeah, Focus Assist. Well, what you're going to do, I don't think Focus Assist has a setting within Windows settings. You can search for it and see for sure, but I'm pretty sure we have to set the priority based on the app. So I think you have to go to notifications and actions, and is it within? Yeah, there you go. So if you scroll down, nope, those are quick actions. There you go. So some of your apps are going to be, there's nearby sharing. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So if you click on that, and you open that up, you get the more detailed things. So here, we do want notifications, so that toggle's fine. You want Toast, that's fine, so you want those to pop up. Very handy setting. Most time it's toggled off by default about keeping them private on a lock screen. Mm-hmm. If you want it to also appear in the Action Center, you can keep that toggle on. These are all defaults. So what you do here is there you go. So high. So the one you're going to want to choose is high, because that will then make these priority notifications. Actually, this is just adjusting their appearance in the Action Center itself, I think.
Okay.
Although we can test it and see, but let's see. Play sound. This is the number of actions that you want, and then you put them at the top, high, or show them normal. But okay. So there still may be one other setting place that we got to go set this at. Let me just remind myself. So I think your toggles here are okay. Mm-hmm. And then if you go back to the main page and search for Focus Assist, I don't think has it, right? Was that at the bottom?
Well, let's have a quick look at Focus Assist. So that's the hours that I want it to run when I'm duplicating my screen.
There it is, right there at the top. So Focus
Customize your priority list?
Priority. So you select priority only, and then you can click on that link there to customize your priority list. Now this will show you, this is where you can add app by app what you want to add. Now it will have some stuff. So if it's people you want to always get alerts from, you can use that if you're using the people stuff. Otherwise, there you go. So you go down and you choose the app, Nearby Sharing. And now that should be added below there. Just check. Scroll down a little bit. So you've got the Xbox puts itself in there. You can remove those if you want. So if you click on one of those apps, it should pop up a remove prompt on it. Yeah, so you can get rid of those. That's how you adjust this list. So from now on, your Nearby Sharing, even without having set that other setting, because that's just the rank in the Action Center, now any prompts from Nearby Sharing are going to pop a toast. If you're in priority mode, it will pop a toast that you can directly interact with to react to that file share or whatever it is.
Yeah, and you can hear that's the need for my workflow. I do like to have priority, or rather Focus Assist on, so I'm not getting a whole lot of prompts. But I would like to see that prompt when I'm trying to do Nearby Sharing. Yep. And this is good to know, because there might be some other things I want to prioritize in the apps as well.
And cool. Priority. So the priority choice that you made on that first page, and then you clicked on this link to get here, is specifically for priority only mode in Focus Assist. So it only is going to put those apps that you just selected as the priority. This right here are for general notifications and actions. But with Focus Assist, it overrides that. And it takes not this page, but it takes, these are kind of your defaults.
Yeah.
But on Focus Assist, it takes that app list, overrides all those other notification settings for when you're using Focus Assist, whether it be in priority only or in the full mode, alarms only.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so going back to Nearby Sharing, since we talked about some of these settings, we might as well look them up. So you're searching for it, and it says changing your sharing experiences, and that's where you'll set your Nearby Sharing. And this is where I've got it turned on. And with accounts, so this is where if I go into manage accounts,
that's going to just give you
any of these accounts that I receive a prompt from or share from.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Because now if you go back to that page that you were just on.
Yeah, here's the fun part.
Yeah, I know it doesn't let you go back, right?
You can't go back to that one.
There's no back arrow.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, so your accounts are all shared experiences. Use all systems accounts to authorize actions across devices. So whatever accounts you have on the device are going to take advantage of nearby sharing if you're logged into one of those accounts on another device, as long as that account's on here.
Here's the scenario, and this is my work laptop, but I could be using the Surface with my personal account, and it's going to allow any of those accounts to
that
nearby
is correct.
share. Great.
Now you have nearby sharing toggled on, but down here I can share or receive content from everyone nearby, so it's not locked down to your devices. So this is the key. Now, I don't think, say for instance, Apple's what is Apple's sharing thing called? It's like this, AirDrop. I don't think they're compatible. I've never tested it myself, but my suggestion here, just to eliminate any outside influences, is to choose My Devices Only, because that will now any of those device accounts that you just showed, whether they're logged into a device or not, will be part of that sharing and won't be anything external. So if we were in the same room, if we were in a big Microsoft conference with a whole bunch of Microsoft users that are using nearby sharing, yeah, you'd see a lot more devices listed, right? And the potential's there for them to share a link to you or to share a file. And then depending on how you have that set up, could drop it by default. I'm not saying somebody at that conference is trying to be malicious, but you're just trying to manage the traffic that's coming in and out.
Yeah, and like I using AirDrop a bit, it does prompt me and gives them the option, hey, someone's trying to share something with you, do you want to accept it? And I see that behavior here in nearby sharing too.
You can set that.
Okay, so you can set it so it just drops things in automatically?
Well, down here below,
Yep.
It's for the sharing across devices, which you have turned on, and you got share and receive from My Devices Only. So again, if you open it up to everyone nearby, if it's not one of your accounts, right, because you've got share or receive content from My Devices Only up above. If for sharing across devices, if it's everyone, I think that is the setting that is going to pop a prompt because it's not one of your accounts. And it's going to say, just like AirDrop, it's going to say, hey, so-and-so wants to share a file with you. And some of these cases may be expected, right? If you're at a conference and you want to share a quick document across without having to worry about, like you said, syncing it to OneDrive and then sharing it and doing all that stuff, this would be a very easy way to kind of do it and keep the permissions-based kind of format. Because I think it's important to keep the permissions-based in your control. Just don't open it wide open. And I think, I've never extensively tested it myself, but those prompts are a big deal. So you can either get the prompts yourself or from others when they try to share.
Yeah, it's a
great feature. It really is a neat feature.
Yeah, it will be one of those features as a good addition where you can do this with turning off your wireless and your Bluetooth. You can say, I want to do this for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. That nearby sharing, wouldn't it be great to just say, I want to turn this on for everybody at the moment because I'm standing nearby.
Oh, have some rules. Have some rules or something like that. Yep.
That'd be kind of on for 5 minutes, and then you can receive it from that new contact that you've met at a conference or wherever you are.
Right. And the other thing that just occurred to me with nearby sharing is that on the Android side, I can't tell you for sure about iOS because I have not extensively tested that, but the files, so pictures and document files, are also part of the share targets on Android for nearby sharing. So not just web links out of Edge, but you can if you use the Android system sharing system, nearby sharing appears there and allows you to share it to your. It's got the same little arrow share to your PC like we see on Edge, for instance.
Yeah. So that means that you could share a file, and like this is one of the ones that I was trying to share yesterday.
Those are some pretty big files. MP4 files are pretty big.
Not those ones are. I think it was something that was only about 29 meg, and so I was surprised that it was something that. Let's just pick anything.
The thing to keep in mind is it works on Bluetooth, and I don't think it's restricted to a specific Bluetooth, so Bluetooth LE or Bluetooth 4.0 or whatever. But because those protocols can be a little bit different, I think they have to negotiate themselves down to a common level. And so you might not get the best speeds if you're on a variety of Bluetooth devices type networks that are capable. And you know how it is. Some devices have Bluetooth LE, some have Bluetooth 4.0 and not the LE, the low power, low energy option. So I think depending on your mix of devices, it could impact that transferability too. Plus just general interference. Bluetooth is a very good short range, close in protocol for communications. Beyond that, the further away you get from something, the tougher that's going to be.
Now, I realised that I hadn't downloaded this to my local machine. So now that it is local, I have the option to share, and this is where I should see nearby devices.
That's correct.
I've got my Surface woken up.
There it is.
Yep, there it is. So I can just choose that, and because it's something that I'm already signed into. Over on my other monitor, which is my main monitor. In fact, if I just do this, no, you don't quite see it. Never mind, not in the recording. So it is offering to share that.
To share the file. So you have to accept that file from that share.
I do, yeah. So I'm going to go into the Action Center on my other device and say save, and I can option to save and open as well, and it's going to be sent through. Yeah, that's good.
No, I use, when Windows 8 and 8.1 came out, we had what they called the share charms, right? They came out of the right side of the screen. You could swipe in. And I really love that feature. And I really like the fact that the share aspect of Windows 10 has become more and more integrated into the OS. For instance, right there. So now we can right-click on Files in File Explorer and get the same share dialog without opening it in another app.
Yes.
So if it's a recognizable file type, and it's a shareable file type, that will be there and take you straight to this dialog, as opposed to, say, clicking on it, opening up in Photos, and then clicking on the share menu and then going that way. And so I love the way they've integrated that into the context menu, for instance, to make it so quick and accessible. And then, of course, if you're in other places, you can obviously access that. And you'll see that same style arrow, that kind of little curve to the right to 3 o'clock arrow that you saw in the context menu on the Android side of the house. And again, I really do need to get my iPad rolling and test this further with the iPad side, because the iPad has AirDrop, and I've never really tested it. I'm pretty sure it's not compatible.
You are right. The only thing that does share from the iPad or the iOS experience at the moment is if you're using the Edge app and you want to continue browsing across. So you can nearby share what you're browsing.
And the same choices pop. The same choices pop, either continue later, which will send it to target all your devices, or pick a device. Yep. And when I was in New York City a week before last, for the hardware event, right, where they announced the new Surface devices and some other stuff, I got a demo of Timeline on Edge, because here we're starting to cross a line. Nearby sharing, as Timeline gets more robust and becomes more integrated in the ecosystem across Android, iOS, and Windows 10, Timeline starts to compete with Nearby Share for sharing some items that are as part of the Microsoft Graph. So web pages I've browsed, documents I've edited, photos I've looked at. I think recently store items that you browsed in the Microsoft Store app now appear there. So as Timeline becomes more robust, the case for nearby sharing becomes a little more minimized, because if that stuff is in my timeline, man, I'm one click into Timeline, and then I can go in there and grab that website URL. I can even search. I've used that so much, going in and searching Timeline for something I browsed either on my phone or on another device, but I couldn't remember what, and boom, there it is. And of course, now you've got the Cloud Clipboard integration, so you can share links across the Cloud Clipboard. It has truly become an ecosystem, a multifaceted ecosystem of ways to share your info across devices. And I think that was Microsoft's goal. I think that is exactly what they're shooting for, and it's starting to really come to fruition. And I mentioned earlier, your phone. Your phone is a way to connect your iOS, or not iOS yet, Android, to connect to my Android phone to not only just type messages, SMS messages with full keyboard, but the pictures. Like you were saying, in a conference when you're quickly going through a keynote and you're taking photos and you want to share that photo with a little snippet of text, man, your phone's making. I used your phone this year at Ignite during the keynotes to do some of my photo sharing, because it was right there. I could right click on it, or I could double click on it, and it'd open up in a share option, and I could do it. So this ecosystem of having access to your data across all devices that you have a Microsoft account on is really becoming very robust.
I see that there's actually the trend too within the productivity space. So this is where I focus on my work and user adoption and change management. That you see in Microsoft 365, just in general, that it's all about picking up from where you left off.
Yep.
So we've had most recently used document lists for some time, but now you can get it from the home page when you sign into Office. You get it from each of your applications. You can go into OneDrive and see it. It's even down to that extent of someone has shared something with me. I no longer go to that email where they've shared it. I go to stuff that's been shared with me, and there's a view of that, and I can find it there without having to search for that email. So that trend is in the productivity space, and now we're seeing it in timeline. Pick up from where you left off, get productive again between your devices as fast as possible.
Oh, I agree. The only downfall to all of that is, unfortunately, the restrictions around iOS. Android is a much more open ecosystem that allows Microsoft to dive in there in areas that they can't in iOS. That's why Timeline is part of Edge on iOS and not part of Microsoft Launcher, because iOS doesn't allow alternate launchers. I don't know if Microsoft's got something up their sleeve to kind of figure out that piece of the pie. It'd be great, because I think iOS users want the same kind of flexibility. At least Timeline gives them some of that. The Edge browser on iOS has the nearby sharing options, so you can share and continue later. So there's a little bit of it, but I'm sure you're an iOS user. I'm sure you would love the idea of doing messaging. And they say they plan for that, but I just don't know how well it's going to come across, because Android allows alternate messaging options, right? Android allows the alternate launchers, so there's so much there that Microsoft can take advantage of. And there's been several stories since Ignite that talks about Android being that preferred platform for the ecosystem because of that openness. But I think that's a key story to be watching. Where does it go with iOS? Is Microsoft and Apple going to kind of partner somehow and help cross that divide? Who knows?
Wouldn't that be something to see in the keynote next year? We saw Adobe and where was it?
It was Satya Nadella's first big event when Apple, when he was going to launch, he launched a new Surface device, and we thought Surface Mini was coming, but it was shortly around that we had a presentation about Apple, or Alphys on Apple. And then the next week, Microsoft was on the Apple keynote stage talking about Office on Apple, being a native first-party experience. Yeah. And so that partnership is there. We now know about Adobe coming to iOS. Right now everybody's testing iOS 12, whatever. We're in that point part after the full release. But and then again, the invites just went out. So maybe we hear something at the end of this month on October 30th when they have their event that's coming out. So I don't know, but it would be great to see that, because I know there's a lot of folks on iOS who want those capabilities. The reality is we're not getting a Windows Phone again, not anytime soon. So you've got to use your other platforms, and Android and iOS are those two main choices.
Yeah. Hey, Rich, it's been really good talking with you about nearby sharing.
Absolutely.
And I think we both learned something there as we dug in. And that's the way, it's always the message I want to leave behind, is that, we all feel like in IT pros we need to be experts in everything, but we don't. If we
not at all.
Rely on each other and be happy to say, oh, I don't know about that, but let's figure it out together, then we get to connect like this and learn.
Correct. And you know what? Go into the system, go into settings and poke around. See what's there. You're not going to permanently harm something. So, and Microsoft, when having us just discovered how easy they made it to make an app a priority app for Focus Assist. You don't have to worry about going into notifications as we first went. You go in there, you pick your app, and that's the one that's going to be priority for you. And then you can turn on priority only on Focus Assist, and you'll only get alerts from those key. You and I are very active social media and things like that. I've come to discover that notifications don't play as large a role for me these days as they used to, because I'm always in social media checking the status of things.
Hey, you've got a tweet and an email. Right. Do you really need to know that?
No, I don't these days. And many people don't, but there are some that do, and there's some that find certain apps and certain content very important, and that's exactly where Focus Assist priority only mode comes from, to allow you to make sure you know that when it happens.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Rich, you enjoy your Friday afternoon, evening.
I will indeed.
I'll get on with Saturday, and I look forward to connecting with you again about some Windows questions.
All right, sounds good, Daryl. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Bye.